In a defiant move, the Ukrainian president heads to the frontline city of Bakhmut to raise morale among Ukraine's troops in the run-up to Christmas.
While Vladimir Putin and Alexander Lukashenko meet in Belarus, Russia faces difficulties in illegally annexed regions.
After a historic UN deal to protect the world's biodiversity is reached, EU ministers meet to see how it can be implemented on the European level.
Amazon agrees to make major changes to its business practices in a deal with the European Commission, as Brussels clamps down on big tech companies.
In a show of defiance, the Ukrainian president has visited troops fighting in the frontline Donbas city of Bakhmut. Volodymyr Zelensky presented medals to soldiers battling to drive Russian forces back from the besieged eastern settlement. While the army may be holding their ground, it's a different story for the dwindling population there, with many being forced to evacuate.
When you go to bed, you pray. Every night, you get up, you pray. Every night and morning, that you're still alive, and for it to stay that way, every time. We've lost track of the days, but today is Saturday, Sunday.
Far away from the front line, the Russian president has also been handing out honors. In an address marking Security Agencies Day, Vladimir Putin acknowledged extreme difficulties afflicting Kremlin officials.
I would especially like to mention the divisions of the security agencies that have begun to operate in new regions of Russia. Yes, it is difficult for you now. The situation in the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republic, in the Kherson and Zaporizhia regions is extremely difficult.
Among those receiving medals were the Moscow-installed leaders of the 4 Ukrainian regions occupied and annexed by Russia. As the war grinds on, none of these territories are actually fully under Moscow's control.
Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko likely deflected Vladimir Putin's efforts to coerce Belarus into further Russian-Belarus integration concessions. This is the conclusion by the Institute for the Study of War following the meeting in Minsk on the 19th of December. Putin, when referring to Belarus, notably stated that, quote, Russia is not interested in absorbing anyone, unquote. Some Russian forces are based in Belarus and used its territory in the initial invasion of Ukraine in February. Russia also has strike aircraft based in Belarus. The think tank adds Putin and Lukashenko refrained from publicly discussing the Russian invasion of Ukraine, with both leaders noting that Belarus still faces a Western threat. The Institute for the Study of War has previously assessed that Lukashenko uses the rhetoric of defending Belarus borders against the West and NATO in an effort to avoid participating in the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The think tank continues to assess that Belarus' participation in Russia's full-scale war against Ukraine remains unlikely. Russia's president also said that the situation in 4 areas of Ukraine, Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia and Kherson regions that Moscow claimed to have illegally annexed in September was, quote, extremely difficult. Now, Ukrainian forces continued to strike Russian force concentrations in rear areas of Zaporizhia region as Russian forces continue to reinforce and establish defenses in this area. In Kherson, Ukrainian officials reported that Russian forces are pulling back some elements from areas along the east bank of the Dnipro River. But they reiterate warnings that Russian forces may be conducting an information operation to lure Ukrainian forces into a trap there with false claims of withdrawal.
Off the back of a historic UN global biodiversity deal, EU environment ministers are meeting in Brussels to discuss proposals for nature restoration regulations in Europe. The aim is to set legally binding targets for the recovery of damaged habitats and listed ecosystems.
This is a really important discussion. Finland sees that this is an important tool on halting biodiversity crisis. But at the same time, we do have some concerns that I'm going to lift up. It is not the first time that I'm saying that we're going to need more national flexibility and also cost efficiency.
Various ministers want to oblige member states to develop national plans and put in place effective and localized restoration measures The proposed action would cover at least 20% of the EU's land and sea areas by 2030, and all habitats in need of restoration by 2050.
The European Commission has struck a deal with Amazon that will see the American online retail giant make major changes to its business practices in order to avoid hefty fines. It follows EU antitrust investigations that found Amazon was giving itself unfair advantages over rival merchants.
Today, the Commission has accepted commitments offered by Amazon. These commitments, they address our preliminary concerns about Amazon's practices on its e-commerce marketplace.
Through this settlement, Amazon vowed to stop using non-public data from independent sellers, while giving customers clearer choices and Prime members more delivery options. It's the latest step by EU authorities to clamp down on the power of big tech companies.
A desperate search is still underway in the Gulf of Thailand for 30 missing sailors from the country's Royal Navy. The operation has been going on since Sunday night. 75 crew members had already been rescued after the ship went down around midnight. High waves caused the crew to lose control of the vessel. One man was found unconscious in the water, his life jacket the only thing keeping him afloat. He has since regained consciousness and is recovering in the hospital. 2 military helicopters and several Navy vessels are frantically looking for his shipmates, still lost at sea.
This Middle Eastern specialist bookshop is set to close its doors at the end of the year after 44 years since it first opened in Westbourne Grove in London. Al-Serki Books says it stands for freedom of thought and expression, as well as cultural diversity. But after 2 years of COVID and now the energy crisis, it has to shut.
It was like family, because as Lebanese fleeing Lebanon, you know, we had no family in London. And this was our family. All the employees were like family. Some of the customers became like family. It was like a home from home, you know. So we're losing all this now.
The Arab language bookshop's name means water cellar, and customers say the store is a well-known landmark in the area and are shocked to see it go. However, the award-winning independent publishing house Serki Books will continue.
Terry Hall, the singer of the iconic British ska band The Specials, has died at the age of 63 after a short illness. The band, originally named Automatics, formed with a multiracial anti-racism objective and shot to fame in the 1970s. Several singles reached the top 10, including Gangsters, Too Much Too Young, and Ghost Town, a song about unemployment, economic decline, and urban violence. The cause of death has not been revealed, and the band has asked for respect for Hall's family.
Garrett Fisher has a singular passion, photographing glaciers from the air. This 41-year-old American has spent years documenting glaciers, first in North America and then in Europe. He has spent almost the entire summer flying above Norway. His passion started in the late 90s when he became aware that glaciers were shrinking. The Alps have lost about half their volume since 1900, according to the European Environmental Agency, and that's mainly due to climate change.
So I think 100 or 200 years, most of them will be gone or severely curtailed. So I'm photographing an experience we have available for us in what I consider to be the most expedient, cost-effective, time-effective way. So future generations can see something that will certainly be gone.
Rising sea levels are mostly due to the melting of ice caps, which makes it a greater environmental issue. The clock is ticking, and that's precisely why Garrett Fisher wants to leave a lasting record for future generations, a legacy for those who might never experience these splendid natural landscapes.